Howdy, Smite fans, and a happy Saturday, everybody out there. We are back with the Smite Challenger Circuit here. Over on the North American side of things, it'll be our final SCC set of week number 2 with the SCC. My name is J. Mac Tucker. With me is going to be Trelly Relly here for our very first set. We're going to have the Athenian Sages up against the Xibalba Storm, two teams that are trying to fight, one of them at least for their first win, another one to continue their streak up here.
Yeah, it looks like the Xibalba Storm came out swinging. Athenian Sages still trying to catch that win, but these teams did face in their qualifiers, and the Athenian Sages were able to take that one. So this is going to be a seasoned match, I would say.
Yeah, like I said, this is our final SCC match of the week and our last one here in North America. Specifically, let's take a look at the schedule to see what all broke down here in the NASCC as the week went through. Over on Thursday, we had the Eldritch Hounds and the Anansi Weavers face off, and that was a 2-0. For the Hounds, and then the Kowlin Wardens and the Yomi Tanuki had their little battle right after that one. That was the Tanuki coming out on top here. And now we are into our final set, which, as we said, is the Athenian Sages and the Storm. The Storm had their nice little win last week, and the Athenian Sages, even though they lost, it was still a close match. It was a 2-1 that they ended up going down in their matchup previously on. And looking at the standings here, we can see how that kind of pans out. So far, the only team that hasn't found a win yet at their first two matches has been the Weavers. The Sages want to try and at least keep themselves away from that 0-2, similar fate that the Weavers have here, and bring themselves up into a nice tie, so we can have a three-way tie up here in the standings.
Yeah, trying to get on the board finally for the Athenian Sages, but looking at these teams, man, the SCC is very close. I mean, the bottom team versus the top team, there's not a big gap there. I would say pretty much all of these rosters are able to take a few games off of anyone in the league right now.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like it's the closest competitive year for the SCC in really both of our regions, whether it's EU or NA. But over here in North America, talking about the Athenian Sages, first players on this team, Slash, Jangaru, Briz, Privet, and Shinigami. Players that were around during the qualifier stages, didn't quite make it all the way through, but were still able to find their way into the SCC. Their matchup last week wasn't the best, but it also wasn't the worst. I mean, being able to pick up that 1-2. Briz over here on this team, I was able to make some good work going through. Thoth, I know, is always a god that he really loves to go on. I mean, this is a team that really can still pick themselves up here.
Yeah, I'm a fan of their drafts. They aren't doing the typical just run-of-the-mill strats at the moment. They're trying something new, as you see. We don't see too much Odin at the moment, but you know, if you are able to make it work, it is a little bit annoying to deal with. So trying to make these teams adapt to their play style seems to be their way of trying to get a lead.
Yeah, I mean, even Jangar over here on the jungle pick, not going for only the standard meta picks, you know, not only going for what's top out here. I mean, the East set jungle is something that previously was only reserved for Sino as far as the SCC was concerned, but other players are starting to branch their way out there and really kind of expand their horizons here. They're going up against the Xibalba Storm, though. A couple of big names on that team. Uzi, Magic Feet, Joshi, Oceans, and In My Zen to round that one out. I mean, Magic Feet, the jungler that kind of came out of nowhere, the casual monster here up into the SCC, has really made a name for himself, but he's got a great team going around him. I mean, just Joshi, Oceans, to name a couple of big stitters that have been around the league for a while, and as well as Uzi.
Yeah, the whole team has been looking very solid. I would say In My Zen has been a solid pickup to this roster ever since they all sort of meshed together. They've been pretty unstoppable, you know, finding a loss here and there, but I think they're always growing, and that's what I like to watch about these guys, is the competitive spirit is always there in their games, and it kind of shows through the gameplay.
I've been very impressed by Joshi's performance here so far in Season 9 of the SCC. I mean, he's been able to make some very strong plays. His positioning has definitely gotten a lot stronger than in previous seasons out here. And then Uzi's still just doing Uzi things. It's something that we always kind of joke about, you know, when the meta is like the 3 to 4 gods that Uzi loves to play, then he's going to pop off. And so far, we haven't really seen much of a change up to that meta, so he's able to play these gods like the Odin, like the Cthulhu, and even things like Nike. While Nike may not be as meta right now, definitely a god that he still loves to go over towards.
And Ardio. I mean, Uzi,
oh, yeah.
Uzi is an Ardio fiend, and when Ardio is in the meta right now, that Vamp Shroud with Legion Helm, Voidstone build, it's going to be very annoying. I mean, one of the top pick characters, not just in the SEC, but in the whole Pro League. And Uzi, he's got an Ardio in his back pocket, so you got to watch out for that. But yeah, just a strong team that likes to play. You can play through either one of the side lanes right now. As you mentioned, Joshi, very consistent, but Uzi and In My Zen are both able to carry games if they can get a lead as well.
Yeah, man, this is going to be a good matchup between these teams. We got the picks and bans ready to go for you guys here for our first game of the day between the Xibalba Storm and the Athenian Sages. Talking about that Ardio, though, I mean, that's something that, as you highlighted over into the Pro League, it's seeing a lot of top priority as far as its bans and its pick priority is concerned here, so I would not be surprised if that god does end up either eating a ban like it does right here by the Athenian Sages, or if it was able to be something first picked out. But because of the ban there, along with Thoth and Daji, we won't be seeing any of those gods in this first game.
Yeah, and both of these teams really value the Bastet. I was about to say, if you're not first pick, probably wanting to ban that one away, as the Sages do, because Bastet and RDO right now, pretty devastating. Both of these teams value those picks, and if you're not first pick, which the Sages aren't, they're going to get rid of both of them right away. On the flip side, though, the E-set is going to take a ban as well. We just mentioned it. The jungle E-set, usually something reserved only for Sino, but we've seen it a lot. But the Kleena sneaks her way through, and that is a devastating pick to make its way through right now.
Yeah, I mean, week 1 of the SPL, they got was like 100% win rate. It still has a very strong win rate here between the SCC, and even still, even though it's no longer 100% in the Pro League, it's still absurdly high on that god. So no surprise seeing Kleena be a top pick for these two teams. Alongside there, though, is going to be the Medusa. That always seems to be the immediate answer back. You know, whatever team gets first pick, they get theirs, and then second pick almost always goes over towards this Medusa. No surprise here. And then the Odin as well here for the Sages. Actually, a little bit of a shot there at Uzi, because Slash isn't one that normally goes towards this Odin pick. It's usually something that once he's meta, we go ahead and grab him here, but maybe just a nice little ban towards us.
Yeah, I've honestly seen this Odin into the Kleena a few times. I think it's mostly, you know, the cage to shut down that Soul Eater heal and try to zone her off from going into a wall to escape. And at that point, if you can poke her down low enough, she's not even able to get into the wall. So I think it's just the counter engage to the Kleena. I think the Sages knew, hey, if we leave Kleena open, they have to first pick it, right? So we have to have something to deal with that. The Odin, shut down some of that Soul Eater healing and block you off from the wall. I think it's a good way to go.
Heimdall and Ganesh will be the next two picks here by the Xibalba Storm. So we're going to see a nice little look at the dual lane. Still a little bit up in the air as to where this Kleena is going. We talk a lot about the soul lane, but we have seen her a lot in the jungle as well. I know Panatom over in the Pro League loves to run that guy in the jungle compared to most other teams who have been running her into the solo lane. So we'll see where the Storm end up taking that. Alongside that Odin and that Medusa is another god with a lot of anti-heal into the kit. Serket makes her way onto the roster for the Athenian Sages.
Yeah, to me, I think this Kleena is going to be a magic feat pick. I know that it does go into the solo lane every once in a while, but he has so much success on this character. He was one of the first people I really saw playing it once she became available, obviously, and just looks disgusting on this Kleena. So I think, in my mind, it's a jungle, but you are right. The flex potential is always there, and you have to watch out for it. But as you mentioned, the anti-heal. That is sort of what shut down Kleena right now. She doesn't have any healing built into the kit, but with the Soul Eater build that is just so popular right now,
Go
with that
forth,
Soul Eater
my
buff,
children, and
she just
take
heals
over
up
this
the whole
land.
time. So Serket and Odin making sure to shut down some of that healing, and Kleena's going to have a little bit of a rougher time going online with that build.
And with the quote-unquote top 3 kind of mages right now banned away, being the Thoth, now Agni, and Persephone here on the side of the Sages, they're going to go ahead and grab the next best thing in their book here, which will be the Tiamat. That one's going to be going over to Briz in the mid lane. In response to this, though, we're now seeing a Jormungandr picked up by the Xibalba Storm, So that's going to mean that we are going to see this Kleena go in towards the jungle with this Jormungandr going over into the solo lane. But we've been seeing a lot of different Jormungandr style of builds. We're not used to seeing the more traditional, you build some kind of defense on him, and then you just build him this very heavy bruiser slash tank build. We've been seeing a lot of just full power Jormungandr.
Yeah, really, it depends on what kind of style you're going to play. Obviously, in the EU SEC, we have Lamoga, who just wants to go Chronos Pendant, like Soul Reaver, and just go into that World Serpent and just do as much damage as possible. But there's many counters to that, obviously. You're not as tanky, and once the World Serpent is down, you can't really do much damage. I think Uzi, more of a tried and true Vamp Shroud sort of tank hybrid style build for this Jormungandr, probably going to work out a little bit better here. As we see, the last pick is going to be Athena, trying to match some of that global presence that the Jormungandr has already, and the rotations you're going to have to watch out for. We don't see too much Athena anymore because she doesn't really get pressure in that lane, but if you don't care about your lane pressure because you have that Medusa, it's going to be a deadly combo, that taunt into Petrify.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen a whole lot of the Medusa, or not the Medusa, the Athena. We've been seeing a lot of the Medusa. Actually, the Medusa-Athena combo is something that was kind of like, thought of like right at the origin of that god of this Medusa coming out. It's like, dang, Athena-Medusa's got to be a nasty combo, but we won't really see a whole lot of it here. We'll see if that combo can come to the light here in game number 1 between the Xibalba Storm and the Athenian Sages. But going back onto the discussion of the Athena, where I was trying to go with is, we haven't seen a whole lot of Athena as of the last really couple of years of Smite. But the few games that we have seen her come out here, at least in the SCC and how it's concerned, it's been very successful games.
Yeah, if you're able to just try to match pressure on one side, get a teammate to rotate over, and then you just, Defender of Olympus, go to the complete opposite side of the map, you can really turn the tides of these fights. So I think pretty much the idea for Priv is I'm going to set up my team as best as I can and then try to help some ganks early game. And then late game, we're going to have just the taunt, which is arguably one of the best engages in Smite. Just super easy to hit. Dash taunt is going to set up for your team or at least pull some relics.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a great setup tool here, especially when you got some good follow-up like Briz or like Shinigami that we were talking about earlier. A nice little petrify. If beads are down and Medusa's in the area, you're pretty much just consider yourself dead at that point there. But as the game kicks off, we'll see Magic Feet taking the clean into the jungle. Uzi is going for that more standard defensive style start, at least getting the tier 1 breastplate online with a Tainted Steel to start out.
Yeah, a lot of healing that he wants to try to shut down, but really not too much at the moment. I mean, you could see, obviously, Tiamat has some healing built into the kit. You're going to have the Benevolence procs as well. And then if Shinigami gets real late game, that's Embrace. But I think just valuing how good the early stats are on the Tainted Steel, as you mentioned, that's just going to help this Jormungandr survive because he did opt to go for the teleport here. So no form of defensive relic. It's more so going to be just trying to get back to lane quicker to farm.
Yeah, getting that farm on, and well, Uzi's going to have to use that teleport very early in this game. First Blood goes over to the Athenian Sage as a quick rotation with Jengar over here to the right side of the map. Will net the Sages their first kill of the game, not even a minute in.
Yeah, level 2 Serket and level 2 Odin have a lot of CC there. I'm sure they were able to just chain stun this Jormungandr with no beads, and that's going to be enough to just make sure that Uzi has a rough time in this lane. No blue buff already, only a minute in, so now Uzi has some potions, but that's about it. No sort of mana regen here.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a health chalice alongside those potions, so a lot of health sustain, but unfortunately just too much burst damage. And this is what we've been seeing a lot in the NASCC has been these kind of tale of two starts here. You have the one where you keep your jungler and your mid laner together, and they do the more traditional that we've seen. And then some of these other teams, like the Sages, are running this jungle solo combo where they clear out the speed buff and then go to blue and then straight into lane. And unfortunately for Uzi, he kind of got caught out by that little combo there, so he goes down for first blood on the side of the Sages. But the Storm do still at least able to hold pressure over here in the dual lane, not going down to this Medusa Athena just yet.
Yeah, I do think that right now the Storm probably has to dial it back a little bit. You don't have much kill potential with a level 3 Hebo. The duo lane also pretty safe. Again, we mentioned the Medusa and the Athena, so they're not going to be pushing up too far. So Magic Feet has his work cut out for him here, just trying to confirm blue buffs at the moment. You're not really going to be able to see too many ganks.
Yeah, Magic Feet wants to try and help out Uzi to secure this blue, but Uzi's got barely a quarter of his mana left. He's still fighting against the minion wave, and Jengar and Slash were already there to take that one away. So that's going to be the first blue buff after the initial spawn going down. So Uzi will have to go back to base to sustain that mana back up. So you can see that Uzi's not going to be having a great time, especially after that early start in lane.
Yeah, looking back at this duo lane, though, Ocean's getting pretty aggressive here. Not really fearing how much damage that Medusa can do with just one tier 1 item at the moment, but still, I think it looks like a invade might be happening here as Priv takes a fair bit of poke from In My Zen. This purple buff could be a toss-up here as no one's really rotating over. It looks like Magic Feet finally might make his way over, and Oceans has to go for the steal.
Yeah, Ocean's going to try, but that Turn of Fate will not steal that one out there, so Ocean's unsuccessful in the steal. A little bit of solo farm going over to Zen, a couple of minions there at the very least, trying to get this Heimdall to level 5. Beads are still up on the side of Shinigami, same thing for Zen. Neither of these supports have been able to burn that relic just yet, and I imagine that basically whichever relic does go down first between these hunters could potentially spell the end of the next team fight.
Yeah, it really does depend, because if Zen just has the Bifrost, I don't think he's ever going to be in any sort of danger, but you do have to make sure to pre-beads that taunt or it could pull you out of the Bifrost, and that's not really going to be your favorite option, so trying to stay as safe as possible in that lane. I don't think Zen's going to want to push it up too much, especially because level 5 is about to take over, and then if you lose your beads, then you're going to be in some real trouble, so staying just a little bit far back in this lane, as neither jungler has really looked over at this dual lane. As we mentioned, Magic Feet sort of made a rotation over to that purple buff once, but right now, more so trying to get his solo laner some farm.
Ooh, that's a double taunt, and Zen does end up using the beads there, fearing the damage that might have come from Shinigami on the follow-up. Oceans, though, half health, will aggressively dive in. That's going to get the petrified. Oceans will fall down in response to that. Oceans playing too aggressive, playing with fire, and this time he gets burned.
Yeah, I said they're not going to post up because the level 5 was a-coming, but I guess I was just lying. They knew level 5 was coming, I would assume. They both ticked over at the same time, but Ocean's just not fearing the Petrify at level 5, it seems, as Uzi taking a lot of damage over here at this blue buff. Still does not have it, so these oh, here comes Jangaru. This could be bad. No beads available.
Magic Feet is on the way, too. That's going to be a cage drop down, a World Serpent, but Uzi can't get into that World Serpent in time, and throw an Athena rotation in from Privative as well to throw an assist on the board. And yet another blue buff stolen away. Uzi will not be allowed to have a buff if the Athenian Sages have anything to say about it.
Yeah, the persistent teleport was upgraded at this point, but getting back to lane when you don't have your blue buff, it doesn't really seem like it's going to matter. You're going to get a little bit more XP than you would, but I have to imagine a beads or even a blink to get out of danger would have been more beneficial at the moment. Uzi's still 2 levels behind at the moment. Again, no blue buff available, so just sitting under that tower trying to get as much farm as possible. Slash pretty much owns this side of the map right now.
Yeah, I mean, Slash and Jangaru will not let Uzi get any of this farm, consistently trying to keep the Jormungandr down. I mean, Uzi hasn't even had the opportunity to buy the tier 3 of this breastplate just yet. He's been sitting on the tier 2 for quite some time. Meanwhile, Slash has been able to grab a full Blackthorn hammer. So a little bit of extra power, some cooldown over on that right side of the map here. And Uzi just desperately trying to farm up these waves. It's going to be a rough game for this Jormungandr. Maybe a good thing that Uzi did end up starting defense, though.
Yeah, seems like the smart play here. Even with that much defense, it's not going to keep you alive from the amount of CC that the Sages have built into their kits at the moment. But looking at the mid lane, we see both of these mid laners have opted to go for that Sands of Time Spear of Desolation route. Briz, though, does have a small XP lead, 1 level over Joshi on this Hebo. It's going to take a little bit for Hebo to come online, as we mentioned. You still have a good bit of kill potential with that Crushing Wave Water Spout combo, but at the moment, I don't think Hebo wants to get too aggressive because of Jangaru's damage.
Yeah, thinking about it, it's been very quiet in the mid lane. The action has been on the sides of the map. Magic Feet taunted in by Privative, but not much follow-up beyond there. Magic Feet low, and a rotation from Shinigami is going to pick up another kill for the Sage. That's 4 up, and now Ocean's not going to be stuck inside the cage. That remove obstacles gets him out, but it doesn't get him far. It's Slash on a rotation of his own to hit him out with the spear.
I mean, that was all 5 members of the Sages in mid lane. Unfortunately, you look over, you see Uzi in right. You look to the left, you see Zen in left. So just great heads-up play by the Sages to know, hey, we have the damage here. And it looks like Uzi is not. He's not going to be able to confirm that, man. There's no way.
Oh, no. Jangaru's going to try and steal yet another buff away from Uzi. Question is, will Jangaru make it out with their life? It is a Circuit. I don't know why I even questioned that. I did see Joshi rotating over, so I had to hold my breath, at least for a moment here. But that breath will be in vain. It's 9-7. As far as the levels are concerned here in the solo lane. Slash, with that rotation, picking up 2 kills with it, or 3 kills total, I should say, within all of this. A couple of kills just in that last little rotation over has really been able to net him a nice experience lead.
Yeah, the game is going to probably go in the Sage's favor for at least a little bit longer. I mean, they just have everything they need right now. As you mentioned, that blue buff is pretty much forfeit. The only person who's really consistently getting buffs, Joshi in the mid lane at the moment, and Zen has his purple, but still, look at this lead. I mean, Uzi just has breastplate, as you mentioned. He's got solid cooldown, but no sort of damage build. So right now, if Yorm does rotate to the fight, it's just disruption. He's just going to go into that World Serpent, try to knock people up. But at that point, you don't really have the damage to follow it. So almost a 3K, now 2.5K gold lead for the Sages, and only 8 minutes in.
Yeah, 8 minutes, 5 kills up to none so far for the Sages. Privative has been all over this map on the Athena. And these taunts, a lot of beads are still up, though. Privative hasn't really been able to burn these beads necessarily from the storm. The only one that we saw was that fight over in the dual lane just earlier on. They took Zen's beads, and Zen might need to use some beads here if anything does come through. Dash in by Priv, taunt just off the mark, and an ultimate from Zen will make sure they get back to the safety to tier 1. Uzi does manage to make it into the World Serpent on this occasion, so he'll be able to get out alive. But once again, potentially going to be losing out on quite a bit of farm here. I mean, this blue buff is up in about 20 seconds. Magic Feet is here, but Uzi's in no condition to fight for this.
I think Uzi might find a way to die here. Jangaru is still around. It's going to jump over that wall. I mean, you do have a full damage tower, so it's not going to fall very easily. At the moment, it looks like a Gold Fury pull might be coming. The Athenian Sages recognize how many people are over and right here, and it's up to Zen, but it looks like they will back off. They don't want to try to 50-50. This Crushing Wave is still on the map.
Well, cage will come down. Magic Feet is stuck inside and cannot find a way into the wall. Slash will pick up a 4th kill in this game. Only 9 minutes in the solo laner, the most active across the map. 4 kills for him, 4 assists for Jangaru, and you might as well go ahead and steal a speed buff while you're at it. the Athenian Sages here in game number 1. I mean, this team has just come out to absolutely dominate, and they're doing so perfectly here in this first game.
And they came out swinging as Priv, again, is going to put some stock into this
no.
duo lane. Has to use the beads, and the Bifrost is down. But look at this. Jingaru and Briz going to find a kill and assist, respectively, on this red buff. But the red buff stands tall. At the very least, you lose your mid lane, but hey, you might be able to get that red buff. It doesn't look like anyone's trying to invade it right now as Magic Feet rotates over. But look at this 3-level lead in solo as well. Slash, as you mentioned, 4-0. Has so much just dominance in this lane. I don't think the Yorm's going to be able to do anything for some time.
It's going to be quite some time before this Yorm can do anything. I'm only tier 1 currently on the next item. Meanwhile, Slash has 2 full items online. And it's not like Blackthorn is all that much more expensive than some of these items like the Voidstone that I imagine Uzi is going to be going towards here in that second slot. So it is just a massive gold and experience difference over in that solo lane. 2.5 levels up for Slash comparatively. And that's starting to reflect across the board here. I mean, it's about a level in all of the other roles up for the side of the Athenian Sages with that kill on Joshi there that allows Briz to put up about a 1.5 level lead here in this mid lane. On the Tiamat, and again, we haven't really been talking about the mid lane much. I mean, Joshi and Briz haven't really gotten active on the map just yet. Everything's been just happening around them.
Yeah, besides that one red buff invade where Briz was able to grab a kill on Joshi just now, they really haven't tried to fight at all. I mean, and that's how, I think that's how Hebo really should play. You don't really need to get any kills early on. About level 12, you can really start one-shotting anyone without defense. So that's when Joshi really should be trying to get active. But at the moment, with a level 12 Serket constantly around your lane, you're not going to want to push up too far without your CC immunity.
No, you don't. Magic Feet will lead some damage here from Briz, and that's going to put them under the tier 1 tower. Oceans is here as the Gold Fury is looked at. A dash in by Shinigami, but not going to find any damage immediately after that. And now, knowing that Oceans is here, the Athenian Sages not willing to pull this Fury. Instead, they're going to go ahead and back away, maybe at least regroup, and see if they can get a pick. Oceans has started their back, but I don't think anybody on the Sages can see that just yet. So instead, they'll be right back to the farm game for the Chaos team.
Yeah, I think Zen, again, has the Bifrost just underneath the tower. Doesn't really care at the moment, just trying to stay as safe as possible. But I was surprised that they didn't make a rotation over to gold. It looks like Pyromancer will be looked at the moment. Jingaru just tanking as the Tornado does some damage. Magic Feet sniffs this out, though. There could be a steal potential here.
Could be. Slash will be here. It's still being destroyed here. The Athenian Sages will end up taking that Magic Feet maybe a little bit early on that first Tearing the Veil. So, first objective on the map goes over to the Athenian Sages. Took 12 minutes, but we finally at least got a Pyromancer up here. It's another 500 gold to the Chaos side team. But Trelly, I got to ask you here. I mean, the Xibalba Storm haven't really been willing to step up to any of these team fights just yet. They've kind of had them forced upon themselves. But with how far behind they're starting to fall, I mean, what's the point where the Storm actually look to fight back at these guys?
I mean, I don't think they have a real avenue right now. Joshi pretty much is the kill potential, I would say. The Crushing Wave is your best option because if you're looking at Magic Feet, he's not ganking right lane. I don't think there's ever a way where they kill Slash. Uzi just doesn't really do any damage at the moment. If you're relying all on the Kleena, I don't think you're killing Odin with Breastplate at the moment. So then you look over in left lane. Shinigami is possibly killable, just full damage Medusa if you're able to block that dash, but he has been playing very safe, and anytime you are about to gank, you have to think Priv is very close at any time with that ultimate. So it looks like if Joshi can't find a really nice re-engage with the Crushing Wave, I don't think the Xibalba Storm should be fighting. They should be saying, hey, we can just, you know, pull these punches, try to get as much farm online as possible. If they go for gold, we can try to steal, but right now we have no real avenue to win a team fight. Just dial it back and try to go for late game.
As of now, no pull towards the Gold Fury. We saw a little hint of it by the Athenian Sages momentarily. Shinigami going aggressive against Zen. Bifrost will get Zen out, but it'll cost their beads and their ultimate to get away from this one. But that is a 2-ult trade out that the Athenian Sages used to get that relic and that ult away from Zen. Now, potential fight around the obelisk, but with no ult by Priv, no ult by Shinigami, not sure the Sages are wanting to pull this fight.
Ozzy did make the rotation over as Slash is just getting his blue buff, so I think they were assuming the Sages would pull this Gold Fury, but it does not look like that is the case. So now Ozzy is just losing farm at the moment. 3 levels down already, and Slash continues to farm. No Gold Fury pull. Yorm's going to have to just slither back over to that solo lane. There's really nothing to do over here.
Yeah, I mean, he'll get a little bit of farm in mid, at least for his trouble here, but splitting that with Joshi, who's also 2 levels behind, probably not the most ideal for either of those players out here. So a good little bait by the Sages to try and force something in the left side, and as you say, get that teleport or get that rotation away from Uzi here. Teleport is back up though, so this Jormungandr can jump into any of these team fights whenever necessary. But I mean, right now, I mean, all the pressure, all the experience has gone the way of the Sages. They'll start up this Gold Fury now, knowing that Uzi is on the opposite side of the map. Magic Feet is here, but Magic Feet's gonna have to take a lot in order to try and steal this one away. It's gonna take a nicely timed Veil to grab this one, but it's gonna be the Sages who grab the Gold Fury. Second objective of the game goes to the Chaos team once again.
Yeah, but this time Uzi did not make that rotation. Is proxying and stealing away a little bit of Jangaru's jungle, which I think is a much better play than trying to steal that away. We just saw, I mean, your best option was what Magic Feet did, right? Go into the wall, try to tear the Veil, go for a steal. If not, you're pretty much just wasting your time there. I think Uzi recognizes this, tries to get as much farm as possible, is able to juke out for a bit, but the World Serpent, it's going to have to come out here. I think you're getting caught no matter what.
Now, World Serpent should be a nice little call. Jangar does go with the ultimate, and that will get World Serpent out of Uzi. So that's be a 1 ult for 1 ult trade. But with both of them having decent amounts of CDR into their builds so far, those will come up very shortly. Back over to Joshi in this mid lane. Second item, Soul Gem out of him. Meanwhile, Briz also picks up a Soul Gem, though a little bit later in the build.
I'm so happy to see the Soul Gem, man. My first couple casts in the SPL, I was like, I can't wait to see more Soul Gem. I know it's going to be coming. This item sort of fell out of favor for a while, but it gives you so many stats despite not being the best damage option or the best sustain option or the best health option. Doing a little bit of all of that is really the benefit of this build right now. And obviously, Briz is going in a little bit later with the double flat pen, so still has some crazy damage. But Joshi, this is going to help just survive up a little bit as well as giving him some sustain and cooldown.
And we do see Santa Time start on both of those. So with just the 3 items out here by Joshi and then 3 items from Briz, if we count the third one later on, it's a 30% CDR across the board for both of them. You thought those water hands were up pretty fast already by Josh. They're going to be up even sooner than that. It's what normally like a 3-second cooldown, and now you take 30% off of that. I'm not going to try and do.
You're losing fractions of a second.
Yeah,
there,
I mean, you're losing about a second's worth at most here out of this one. So Joshi's going to have those hands up even faster. That's the main point I was getting to. He'll have his ultimate on his first ability up a lot sooner.
Yeah, and one of his 3 ultimates, jokingly, even 4. Because
I'm about to say, I can. Hold on, are you in the boat that considers the second ability an ultimate like me?
I really don't, just because, you know, I like the meme as big damage, you know, like that's the idea. But you're right, the carpet is a very strong ability, not just speeding up your team, cleansing slows for your team. It also slows down the enemy team, which is an insane ability in its own right, but still. Evo is going to have to get a little more damage online. That Obsidian Shard will be a large power spike, but I still... Can you imagine if Joshi just met Slash in the jungle and they just both used their abilities? I mean, I think Slash would take maybe half his health at that point, but definitely would win that 1v1 at the moment. So still, Joshi's sitting underneath that tower, not trying to push out, but did opt to go for the blink. So no sort of Aegis from this mid laner. Joshi is going to be blinking in, trying to find picks at the moment.
I mean, the full glass cannon style of Hobwa build here in the mid lane. 2v2 on the right side of the map. No stranger to this is Uzi. It's been pretty much the MO for this entire game here. Slash will throw out the spear and jump on top, but that's only a setup for the Pyromancer to go the way of the Sages. Good zoning by Slash will make sure that another objective goes towards his team. Joshi's still sitting under this tier 1 tower. Cannot get active in a lot of these team fights here. Oceans spots out 3 in the middle of the map here at that mid lane. We'll think twice about walking into the lane. Meanwhile, that leaves in my Zen to do a little bit of split pushing of their own on that left side of the map. So it should be potentially at least a tier 1 tower trade out here. But the Sages are grouping up. This could be a tier 2 rush down from them as well if they decide to commit towards it. Zen will stay in the left side of the map, and 2 staying far back in the middle of this map. Meanwhile, Jangaru in the jungle is trying to zone out Uzi, not allowing the World Serpent to make their way into this fight. Tower goes down to about a quarter HP of the Xibalba Storm. But yeah, Zen's gonna take this tier 2 and left.
Yeah, I was surprised. I was assuming the Dharmic Pillars would come down and or the Sages would just commit to that, but Zen actually did get the tier 1 and the tier 2 tower, whereas the Xibalba Storm, they get half health, but there's no gold for getting half health. This isn't horseshoes. You don't get any credit for getting half of a tower, so no sort of gold there. Finally, a small win for the Storm. The gold lead, not as crazy as it was looking before, but still about 4K at the moment for the Sages. So I'll take the return tower. I think that was a smart defense by the Storm, recognizing, hey, they're not going to want to force this too hard at the moment.
That 1,500 bonus there that the Xibalba Storm are able to pick up. Thanks to the help of Zen will help out. Charon's Coin, the next item here by Briz, as highlighted by our good man Doug. So now it's going to be the extra bit. We've got our double flat pen start out of this Tiamat, and now we've got our percent pen coming out immediately after, though there is a percent pen response out of Joshi at the very least. Obsidian Shard, the choice here for the Habwa.
Yeah, if Briz gets 2,500 kills, about 2,550, 100 kills, this item will pay for itself, just because of the Charon's Coin passive. I was looking for a way to weasel that into a cast at some point, and finally, I get to. Because you get one gold, one extra gold per kill, so that Charon's Coin really start paying dividends at some point. As Uzi gets taunted away, has to go into the World Serpent, but might not get it off.
I don't think he'll find it in time, just barely. Uzi makes it in with a sliver of HP, and that should have more than enough distance to at least get Uzi out. I don't know why he even spent so long thinking about it. Oceans uses the beads very early in the engagement there, and the Athenian Sages have set themselves up one more time to go for this Oni Fury, and it doesn't seem like anybody on the Xibalba Storm are willing to step up now. With both frontliners pushed out, the Athenian Sages will once again claim an objective.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I'm not sure why they even tried to defend that one. It seemed like they really didn't want to show face on the objective. Obviously, Uzi sort of posted up, maybe looking for a steal, but at that point, you're better off farming the right side of the map and just giving up that Fury. I mean, I think showing 5 people near the Fury just to give some relics and ults probably wasn't the play. And at this point, that gold lead's just climbing once again. So unfortunate for the Xibalba Storm, now crawling up to a 5k lead as the Fire Giant is the only real neutral objective on the map. Obviously, Pyromancer already down. Fury just goes down as well. Those Oni minions are going to start coming down the left, middle, and right side of the map.
Yeah, but it's pretty early in the game still. I say early, I mean, we're 21 minutes in, but with the state of the map here, the Xibalba Storm have been able to keep their minions at least at that halfway point. So, not going to get a lot of value, at least on the left side, Oni minions. Right side also going to be stopped in the mid lane by Uzi. So, more than anything, just clearing an objective off the map, at least for the side of the Sages. Oceans, they'll post up and get a little bit of ward coverage, at least on the top side of that Fury pit there, to make sure that they can see if the Sages decide to try and pull this Fire Giant. But it seems that the Sages are very content with waiting around a little while longer and not wanting to just blindly pull these objectives.
I think they just want to make sure they all go undying. They're like, this is gonna be whatever it is, blank to 0. That's the idea. We have this lead, but we're not gonna force the objectives just yet. I mean, it is pretty early in the game, as you mentioned, but we saw, what, an 11-minute Fire Giant the other day, so that there has been some early pulls if you can get a big enough lead. But I think the real issue is the burst potential on the objective. Again, Joshi has a blink crushing wave, so even if you are going to go for Fire Giant here, even if you do have the damage to burn it, do you have the confirm? I mean, the answer is no. Athenian Sages do not have anything that's going to outburst a blink crushing wave. Obviously, you could just zone off Joshi, but here you go. Here's the option. Joshi's nowhere near this objective right now.
Fire Giant started up, and it's a little while before any of the Storm are able to respond in. Uzi will come through lurking down, will pop himself right back up, but are rooted out in place instantly as soon as they get to the team fight. Uzi has the shell to be able to get themselves out. World Serpent and a target on the bridge. Crushing wave out of Joshi will eliminate the mid lane of the World Serpent, keeping the backliners alive at least for a little while longer. Joshi finds some big damage, and so does Magic Feet with tearing the veil. Slash goes down as Uzi finds a kill, and just like that, the Xibalba Storm have turned the team fight around, and now they can go for the fire.
What just happened? I mean, they had every lead in the world. Joshi still has Blink, so that wasn't even a Blink-crushing wave that took Briz by surprise. It was just a simple kill. Shinigami trying to steal its way with Petrify. The health bars are getting pretty low here.
Very early, but stuns out Uzi, so at least gets 1 kill. Make that 2. Oceans also falls low into the fight. Shinigami and Jankaru will at least continue the chase. The frontliners are down on the side of the Storm, but with that Atlas, it's going to slow down Shinigami. It's going to slow down Jankaru. And now Zen has creeped their way right back into the fight with no ult by Shinigami and half health. This could be a turn right back around. Magic Feet finds one. Joshi gets an ultimate back up to find a double kill for Magic Feet. They end up going down just the same here. But a delayed deicide on the side of the Xibalba Storm. A 5-kill swing for only a couple of their own.
Okay, J-Mac, I have to be honest with you. The whole game, you kept saying, like, what do the Sages have? I mean, what do the Xibalba Storm have to get back into this game? You know, what's their avenue? And I was like, hey, man, you know, they have a Hibo. They don't have to fight. They could just wait till late game. I was saying that because it's my job. I didn't believe it. I didn't think that Joshi really was going to be able to clutch up and kill. I mean, only get credit for one, but essentially kill 3 there with the lead that we saw. The Xibalba Storm, I mean, they managed that team fight pretty much flawlessly. Obviously, the Fire Giant after the fact. Unfortunate that a few people got caught looking at Shinigami's ultimate. But besides that, they really shouldn't have been able to pull that off. That was just a perfectly executed team fight. And I should say the Sages probably didn't do as great of a zoning job as they should have, because they put a lot of damage into the tanks, not so much into the carries. As I mentioned, Joshi was able to kill Bridge with that crushing wave without even blinking in. So being able to close that gap just by walking up, unfortunate. But the Xibalba Storm back in the driver's seat. I say back, but they haven't been in the driving seat pretty much this whole game. So now officially in the driver's seat. They have FG on 2 on your jungle and your ADC, which arguably the most objective shred you really need. So on the 2 most important targets, you have Primal Fury spawning soon. But it looks like the Sages are not giving up these towers for free.
Joshi has that ultimate back up again, and because the blink was not used in that last team fight at all, even the delayed team fight that went beyond the Fire Giant, Joshi does have it here if they want to use it for an engagement. Gold Fury is about to come back up. That'll be the Primal Fury at the very least here. Magic Feet inside the wall. Doesn't find anything with that Scream right after the Banshee's Wail, just off the mark. The Athenian Sages, though, will at least walk up here, but Ocean's at the front line this time around. Taunt only onto the Ganesh, and a Water Spout right onto Priv. Double knockup by Uzi, and some big damage after with that Bellowing Roar. But not going to be a whole lot of damage just yet. At the moment, it's just Uzi trying to zone away as this Gold Fury starts slowly being burned down. Primal gets down to about a quarter health, but it's been leashed away. Slash does manage to find at least one with the cage, but the shell is going to be out. World Serpent by Uzi, but Uzi is very low. He's going to have to use that third one to find a way out of this team fight. Will use it to get away. Joshi goes through, but the Crushing Wave is off the mark. The Water Spout's good, but Joshi goes down. It's a turnaround by Briz and Genkaru. In my Zen does manage to find Primitive, but Uzi goes back into the fight and goes down because of it. It's a double kill to the mid laner.
Yeah, Zen might have to Bifrost out of here. It looks like the Sages are continuing the chase. Ocean's very weak, probably going to have to just fall and say, hey, I'm going to die for my ADC at the moment. And it looks like that is going to be the option. Zen is going to be taking the bait, and it looks like they are going to get out. But Feet still has a lot of damage. Magic Feet makes the rotation over.
Oceans gets very low. Slash jumps in on top of Magic Feet, who will find a way to get inside the wall just in time. Magic Feet won't be taking a whole lot of suffrage here. 2 go down on the side of the Storm for only one of the Sages, but those 2 were not the ones that had Fire Giant on them. Magic Feet and Zen still holding on to this buff for only a short while longer. Zen's at least going to put that to use alongside his jungler and maybe try to get this Primal, but Shinigami knows that this is going on. No ultimate, though, means that Shinigami would have to walk very deep to try and steal that one away. So instead, Shinigami will give that one up, and the Xibalba Storm will close up that gold lead one more time. Now, only sitting around 700 gold.
Well, I gave Joshi a lot of praise at that Fire Giant fight, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention the big whiff that was that Crushing Wave. Sort of right through the uprights, missed both carries, and unfortunately Joshi was not able to make use out of pretty much any damage at the end of that fight there, and that's sort of why it turned bad. I think the Xibalba Storm were pretty confident going into that chase. I mean, Uzi gets poked out, but into the World Serpent gets a lot of knockup, and it looked like the chase was on until you see this big Crushing Wave miss, and then unfortunate. But the Xibalba Storm have climbed back. Look at the gold lead. Obviously, Fire Giant is about to spawn in. Pyromancer is going to go down shortly as well, but pretty even given the situation.
Xibalba Storm with that fire were able to close up that gold lead to basically negligible margins here. So that with the XP, still about 1,800 up. That's just from the objectives that the Athenian Sages were able to grab there, plus towers. So, at least for now, they'll still be in the Athenian Sages' favor as far as the gold and XP are concerned. But as we're starting to get later in this game, the XP matters even less so. I mean, technically, Oceans is ahead of Privative in levels here, so that XP doesn't really mean anything. Gold is the major factor. I mean, Slash is a full item and a half up over Uzi's starter item finished up there with that Bluestone. The Athenian Sages will start up around the Fire Giant. Not going to start the Fire Giant just yet, especially not with Joshi still standing around.
Tiamat Lizards are in mid lane, so Magic Feet is going to have to clear those out. But it looks like Uzi was sort of looking to get aggressive and try to find a gank, and to me, that's crazy because we saw how far Uzi was behind. Now he's sort of tanky, like even as you mentioned, an item and a half behind Slash, still able to get into the backline and then go up into that World Serpent before able to die. So it is crazy to see that Uzi was able to make this comeback here where he's actually a threat to the carries of the Athenian Sages given the lead that they had. Obviously, Shimigami, a full build ADC right now, everything besides that Crusher sold, which most of these ADCs like to do, selling that Crusher late game for domination, or dominance rather. It's just, besides that, it's kind of crazy that he's able to live right now in these fights. But anyways, 5v5. As we mentioned, the Lizards are going down mid lane, but the Fire Giant has not been pulled yet.
The Fire Giant still going to be waiting a little while longer before the Sages are willing to make that pull. As I said, with Joshi standing by and a Blink available, I mean, we were talking about needing to zone Joshi out last time, and he was able to walk up slowly and ultimate somebody maybe. They can find it again, but with Oceans poked out of about half of his HP, it's going to force Uzi to be the frontliner here on the side of the Xibalba Storm. The Athenian Sages are playing this one very patiently around this Fire Giant, not willing to make that pull with too many bodies standing by.
Yeah, Magic Feet again, having to go back and clear that wave. These Tiamat Lizards are going to make that mid lane poke down a little bit more. That tier 2 tower, pretty weak, but the Fire Giant has been started up once again, but this has to be a bait. It looks like Shimigami's tanking this by himself at the moment.
Now that it's enhanced Fire Giant, as we've hit the 30-minute threshold here in game number 1. 12-6 on the kills. The Athenian Sages had control pretty much this entire game. The only moment where they lost it was around the last Fire Giant fight. That was a Xibalba Storm deicide up against the Athenian Sages. A delayed deicide, but a deicide nonetheless. Xibalba Storm have been able to pick up 1 kill since that point, and then it's been all back to the Sages. They'll start the Fire Giant yet again. Uzi fairly low in mana here, not going to have a whole lot when this team fight really kicks off. Meanwhile, Jangaru goes into the mid lane. Now the Xibalba Storm should know that this is a quick 4v5, but they just don't have the pressure or really anything to step up.
Yeah, it seems like Priv is just looking for a huge taunt here. Obviously, having the taunt available, having the root sprint as well, so a lot of CC from this Athena at the moment, but no go button just yet. It seems like just sitting around corners. They're going to let Jangaru go back, get that speed buff, as Zen and Magic Feet are also going to back here. So, as you mentioned, Enhanced Fire Giant, it's a big deal. You don't want to 50-50 this. You want to make sure that you're either baiting in and looking for a fight, or you have a numbers advantage when you're trying to pull this objective here. And it looks like neither team really confident enough to pull it 5v5 at the moment.
No, they're going to play this one out very slowly, very patiently. The Tiamat Lizards are not going to get much value here in the mid lane. Those will be cleaned out very quickly there by Enmai Zen and Magic Feet, who are standing by there.
What are the name of the
Uzi walks up. The Lizards don't actually have an official name. They're just the Serpents of Tiamat, if I'm not mistaken. But Oceans, his name right now is the one that everybody's calling on the Sages for a kill. But there won't be any kill to be had there. Uzi spotted out, not a whole lot of damage in response. And still, the Athenian Sages, while winning the poke war up against the Xibalba Storm, have not found enough of a window to try and go for one of these objectives. They've been sitting around here for so long that they could just take another Pyromancer for how long we've been fighting over fire.
Yeah, until something happens, I'm gonna pick your brain one more time. Then what's the ox? It's an ox, right?
I think it's technically a Minotaur, which is basically like an ox, man. That's Kusariku. And then Umudabrutu is the other one here. Taunt in onto Uzi, won't find a whole lot. Slash is tanking up everything in the backline. Will drop the cage, and his health bar down fairly low too. World Serpent now out of Uzi to chase in. But he's only going to find Briz, who's going to get a quick leap to get away from there. Slash, the one who ate the biggest brunt of damage in this team fight. Slash will need to reset themselves potentially here for this team fight with an ultimate down. Not much more for the Soden to provide.
Yeah, both solo lane ults down, but besides that, everyone's really sitting pretty. You do have both relics down for Slash, but besides that, Priv goes in for the taunt, but gets ohmed out.
It's going to be a quick ohm. Only Oceans is going to be the one eating the taunt, but Primitive is the one eating all the damage in by Zen. Will find the first kill of the team fight, and finally find something else for the Xibalba Storm to grab here. Maybe a tier 1 tower as the minions push up with them. They don't even need them. Oceans can tank that one up and make sure they grab that one. Jangaru goes back to the base, which leaves only Shinigami and Briz here to try and defend against the tier 2 tower. But the Xibalba Storm aren't going to go for the tier 2 tower siege. Instead, the Oni Fury has respawned. It seems that the Storm are more concerned with going for the objective.
Yeah, Uzi's ult not quite up yet. Still about, I don't know, 20, 25 seconds. So trying to frontline right now is a little bit dangerous, but I think the Sages recognize they're probably on Oni Fury and they're heading over towards Pyro. I would say Fire, but given it's just Jengaru and Slash, it's got to be just a Pyro looked at. But Magic Feet, kind of weak here. Doesn't want to take a 1v1 with a late game Circuit and is just going to back up as those Oni Fury minions are coming down the mid, left, and right side, this time for the Xibalba Storm.
Xibalba Storm will be able to try and get some value out of these Oni minions, but similar to last game, the waves are pushed up very far. Maybe that left side, the Storm can find a little bit of value with it, as they do have the wave pushed up fairly far on that left side of the map here. With Tiamat Lizards now pushing into the mid, not much here that can be done with this Oni Fury, just clearing that one out. But we're pushing 34 minutes now. Jengaru goes in, pops the beats preemptively, and throws the ultimate up against Oceans, although crushing wave from Joshi off the mark, and Joshi is gone the instant that it fades away. Dark Pillars are not enough to save, and a cage coming out by Slash. Zen is now caught inside, can't use the Bifrost to get out. It's Slash who comes up big, but Magic Feet finds a double kill just on the dash alone, and now has to use the beads and Aegis to get away. Jukes away for the jump out of Slash, but it's not enough to save their life. Jengaru low in the backline. The World Serpent isn't enough to find them. It's Oceans on the run from Slashy and Briz, but Uzi does find one. Ocean still standing alive, but the Athenian Sages have traded out 3. Make that at least a 3 for 4 now for themselves.
But look at that left wave. There's a huge Oni minion wave going down for that left Phoenix. All Uzi has to do is stall here, and that could go down. No one's there to defend. It's not a huge wave anymore. It's sort of a medium-sized wave, I would say, but it's going to be close. Briz is trying to get back for the defense, and Uzi has to stop. Doesn't get it.
Yeah, it's chunking that Phoenix. I don't know if Briz is going to get there in time. This is going to be a very close call. Look at how large that Archer wave is. No, Phoenix goes down. The Xibalba Storm, they lose 4 in the team fight, but they at least pick up a Phoenix for their trouble, and what a Phoenix to grab, too. That left side's going to make it easy for this Fire Giant.
Yeah, this enhanced Fire Giant may finally be on the table for a team, and it looks like the Xibalba Storm are going to be able to at least have some pressure going for it. As you mentioned, the Tiamat minions will have a little bit of defense here to try and stop this wave flow, but again, Joshi off the mark with that crushing wave. That fight could have been much different if just a late game Hebo ult is able to land, but unfortunately, just splits the uprights once again. You can confirm it with the water spout, you know. You don't really have to just blindly ult there. I think trying to go with the last breath, obviously Circuit, when on top of someone's head can't move, just off the mark just a little bit. So despite the fact that Joshi hasn't been able to land a huge ultimate, the Xibalba Storm is still able to find some success in these fights.
I mean, I just watched Joshi hit a red buff with his one for like 1,200 damage.
Yeah,
you probably don't need Crushing Wave to confirm here. I don't really see one of Briz's abilities hitting that hard. But both these mages are full build. It's a Rada Tahuti last item for Joshi. Would only need to upgrade that as far as a glyph is concerned if they want to maximize the remainder of their build here. Maybe throw that 600 gold over towards that Calamitous Rada Tahuti. Or Nimble Rod if you want some extra attack speed, because why not? Seeing a lot of people still kind of opt towards Nimble Rod more often than not here. The Xibalba Storm now with pressure, as that left side does have the fire minions, but look at the response by the Sages. They sent Shinigami over to that left side of the map and really pushed those waves up all the way up to the tier 2 tower. Meanwhile on the backside, Oceans will find Slash. Slash find the cage onto 2, but a Bifrost out by Zen will make sure that they're out of the cage. World Serpent in the backline out of Uzi is bothering everybody. Jengaru gets blown up by Joshi. That's the first kill of the team fight. Now over to the Xibalba Storm and a quick retreat out of the Sages.
Yeah, Uzi was getting pretty low in the back, but also look at the damage he was able to do. Shinigami, very weak. Briz takes a chunk as well. And Slash, the health bars are not looking great, and that left wave finally starting to push up. Those minions are pretty far back at the moment, but the fire waves are going to push in here. Slash is trying to defend this, but the enhanced Fire Giant hasn't even been pulled yet.
No, neither of these teams have grabbed that objective just yet. The most damage we've seen to Fire Giant so far this game, Charlie, has been like 10% of its health at most. Neither of these teams have gone for a full commit to this objective, and I don't think that we'll see one at any time soon. I mean, at this point onward, they could just end the game off of a team fight. Finally, we'll see this Fire Giant pulled and the most health that we've seen from it chipped away, down to half HP on the objective, but the Xibalba Storm are going to give up going for the objective. Instead, Slash has gone to the back line, and Slash will have to jump back to his back line as he's getting shredded by Josh. The ultimate from Primitive may have just sealed his own fate. Josh goes in, finds one, finds the double kill. No, make it a triple kill with the water spout in the back line. Briz running away from Uzi as he and Jengaru now the last ones alive for the Sages.
Fire minions in left as finally the enhanced fire giant looks like it's going to be pulled for real. There's no way Jengaru can even afford to step up past that speed buff. So huge plays out of Joshi. I guess once you miss a few of those ults, you finally decide, I'm going for this one, and I'm going to hit a triple kill for the mid lane of the Xibalba Storm, and they have the gold lead. Still not the kill lead, but they really don't need it. It looks like they're going for the end here.
Well, Jengaru, be careful which corner you walk around, because there may just be a hobwall lurking right around it. Tier 2 tower is still up.
They're going for the end.
I guess they are just going to go. The Phoenix is still down on that left-hand side. Xibalba Storm will walk right in, pull this Titan, and that should be game number 1 going over to the Storm after being down for literally the entirety of the game until that one team fight. Xibalba Storm take game number 1.
I think they might have still been down for those last couple seconds. I mean, that's just a crazy turnaround. As we mentioned, down 0-7 when they won that very first Fire Giant fight. I call it a Fire Giant fight. They didn't really pull FG, but down 0-7, were able to win that one and just sort of start mounting their comeback. 40 minutes later is when they finally are able to end that game. I'm going to attest that to late game Hebo.
Yeah, I mean, late game Hobwa with 3-4 ultimates. If you're at least in my boat, you can consider that other one a 4th ultimate there. Xibalba Storm able to find a nice game here for game number 1. We'll come back to it after for game number 2.
Put your hands on me. Put your hands on me, on me, on me. Put your hands on me, on me, on me. Put your hands on me, on me, on me. Put your hands on me, on me, on me, on me, on me, on me, on me. Put your hands on me. I just wanna dance, dance, dance with you.
Hello and welcome back to the NASCC. Game number 1 goes over to the Xibalba Storm, despite the fact that they were down for pretty much the entirety of game number 1, almost all the way up until that very last team fight, where they're able to find just a few picks, 3 of them to be specific, I should say, not specifically. And they're able to find that win up there over against the Athenian Sages, who held the control. And I mean, Charlie, we saw what was probably the longest Fire Giant dance that we've seen in a game in a long time. It felt like half of that game was spent at the Fire Giant pit.
Yeah, you mentioned it. The Fire Giant only took about 10% HP for that whole time until someone finally was able to pull it, and it was Joshi who decided to just end this fight. After a few whiffed ults, late game able to just wrap up that triple kill at the FG, and that was the go button. After that, it was smooth sailing.
Yeah, Joshi, once he finally did connect a few of those ultimates, was able to make a huge impact for the team. And that's the topic that we always talk about with these late game hobwas is, yes, early game is not going to be great, but if you can get to late game, and you can stay alive, I should say as well, whenever we get to the late game. And this hobwa does monstrous damage. I mean, you're seeing 600-700 plus damage water hands up against Jangaru, who did have some magic defense built up into the kit. And Joshi here at this final team fight, 38 minutes in, is when we see the next big one go through and finds a beautiful crushing wave that hits Priv, and then a nice 1-2-3. That's all it takes. Or in this case, a 4-1-3 combo out of that one here. Joshi cleans that one up, a 5-4-7 to end out his slash line.
Yeah, beautiful gameplay by the Xibalba Storm. Not to say the Sages didn't have solid map play pretty much the rest of the game. I mean, until it became that Fire Giant dance that you mentioned, they had a very commanding lead, I would say. It just seemed like their late game comp, I mean, it isn't even that bad, honestly. I think they just weren't able to execute their picks. And every time Priv was able to dash in and get a taunt off, Oceans had the silence there. It was really delaying their fights. And then after that, you just have late game Hebo. And Uzzy was able to disrupt the backline as well. It was a solid team fight play by the Xibalba Storm.
I mean, rewind this game, like 10 minutes into the game, Uzzy was down like 0-4.
Oh, yeah.
Like, this was a 3, nearly 4 level down Jormungandr, and somehow the Athenian Sages still weren't comfortable pulling objectives, even with Uzzy standing around with how weak that he was here. Athenian Sages took a little too long to get this game going. Let's see if they can get off a little bit quicker here. Game number 2 between the Sages and the Storm kicking off now, but I mean, the Sages had the early game. They had the mid game. It just came down to an unwillingness to pull this Fire Giant. And Charlie, maybe that comes down to some of their picks here not really having good objective burn or objective secure.
Yeah, I think number 1, the objective confirm. That's an issue because you always have to worry about that crushing wave. You always have to say, are we even able to pull this despite our lead? But on the other side, I think Jormungandr is just a very solid pick from behind, even though you don't have the defense to sort of match the pressure that you're dealing with. Into the World Serpent, it doesn't matter how quickly you die because you can't die when you're up into that ultimate. So just that disruption was always on the table for the Storm. So I think the draft was the main issue here, and the Sages are going to have to make a little bit of a change. And already, we're seeing that cleaner come through. Not for the Storm, this time for the Sages.
Yeah, Sages will grab that Assassins. We'll see if that one ends up hitting that solo lane or into the jungle. And a god that made it through for a little while last game and then later on got banned out is going to be this Bastet. So we'll get to see her jump up here into this game. Now on the side of the Xibalba Storm. Couple that one with the Medusa, which is the typical second pick option for these teams over in that second pick slot. And looking at the bans here, quite a few mage bans. You know, the E-set, somewhat of a target ban up against, you know, specifically the Oceans here, but that's Xibalba Storm banning that one, so that one more so a ban against Jangaru, and then you throw in the Zeus as well. So some of these mages did end up getting hit here, so I'm curious to see where our mid laners will go.
Yeah, that Agni is still open, which I think both of these mids favor a little bit just because of that range and the amount of damage you can hit off. But I'm looking at the Bastet Kleena combo here. Obviously, I'm not going to say a yin and yang. It's not one of those things where they counter each other, but just a difficult matchup because you can immune some of the damage if you go into the wall, but Bastet just brings so much to the table. And it looks like that's actually Uzzy on a Camazotz solo, perhaps, because I think Magic Feet loves this Bastet too much to give it up in the jungle. So it's either a Camazotz solo or we're seeing some Camazotz mid, which I will say we've seen a little bit.
We have seen Camazotz mid. We've seen a lot of weird things in the mid lane when it comes to the SCC, and I guess even now, technically SPL, now that we got BennyQ and Pagon, who have made their way up into the top end. The SCC is starting to bleed up into the top end of play here. But second round of bans, Agni Nemesis, and then a Hopwa and a Khepri banned away here. So a couple more mages taken out. All of the quote-unquote top mages right now, aside from Persephone, I should say, have been taken away. And Xibalba Storm are going to bring Atlas out. Atlas doesn't, I hadn't seen a whole lot of games here, only 50% on the win rate, 2 games played. So not a lot of play out of Atlas in the SCC, but from what we've seen out of this guy in the SPL, then this is a powerhouse pick for support.
Yeah, Atlas, I think, is just incredibly strong right now. Given the gravitational pull is just, it's essentially an ultimate that you're able to just pick up someone and CC them like that. But now our heads are looking at this Wheelix pick that was last picked here. There is a few leaps. You have the Bastat leap and the Camazotz leap at the moment, at least. And then we're seeing an Oleron. So a few different options for this team. That could be a Medusa mid, and it could be an Oleron ADC, or switched. And we already touched on the fact this is, I'm thinking that cements me for the Camazotz solo. So Camazotz solo, Bastat jungle, and then I think Medusa and Oleron could go either way. And honestly, looking at these squads, the Wheelix is going to have to get some picks early because you're facing double ADC. The late game for the Storm is going to be insane. Yeah,
that late game objective shred is going to be big for the Chaos side team. We'll see if the Storm can close this one out in 2, or if the Sages will be able to bounce back this and take us to a game number 3. Let's jump right in, though. Game number 2 between the Sages and the Xibalba Storm. And it will be Uzi taking the Camazotz there, so a good call there by Trelly. But Joshi is actually going to take the Oleron mid. Something that we don't see very often is Oleron mid. That's usually more often reserved over towards that dual lane.
Yeah, I would definitely say, I think just because you don't really want to fight early, as the 3v3 you're sort of forced to fight early, but in dual lane you can sit back and just collect your farm. But I have tried the Oleron mid a few times. Just getting those Gilded Arrow procs consistently helps you out with your farm, and then having arguably the best teamfight ultimate in the game is never going to hurt your squad. So I think as long as Joshi positions well and is able to get his damage off, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. It's just that early game that I'm a little bit worried about, even into an Wheelix, which is going to make it just as hard, I would say, to try to survive in this lane. But on the flip side, you have the double assassin squad for the Xibalba Storm, Camazotz and Bastat. That's going to be a pretty strong dive.
It's a double assassin on both sides here with Kleena and a Wheelix, so we'll see how that one pans out for these two teams. We do have the double assassins start going over towards the right side of the map, at least for the Sages. Meanwhile, Storm will send the Bastet over towards the mid lane to help out Joshi a bit. And maybe necessary, as you were talking, Oleron, not really the best as far as his mid lane clear is concerned, nor his safety. Having an extra bodyguard there can never hurt you out in the early game.
Yeah, I would say so, but the pressure on Uzi. It was the name of the game last game, and it looks like the name of the game this game. Already, Uzi is getting very poked out in that lane, but opted to go for the Warriors Axe start, so trying to get a little bit of extra sustain, but also some tank stats on this Camazotz, trying to just live up here. But it looks like Jangaru is not going to let Uzi live. He's going to be sitting at this tower line, not being able to get his clear off. But that means the pressure in mid lane is on, because Magic Feet is helping out Joshi, as we mentioned, so just trying to get some farm in the mid lane. The dual lane could also be in trouble.
Well, look, as long as Uzi hasn't died yet in the solo lane, he's doing a lot better than he did in game number 1 as far as dealing with the Athenian Sages here. Sages are actually pushed back in the dual lane. Uzi poked back in the solo lane. But as a Camazotz, this has some sustain built into the kit via way the Vampire Bats or that Devour Leap, as long as Uzi is fine with actually leaping up towards Slash. But with Slash being full HP, Uzi not being full HP, will not have the luxury of using that dash to get that extra heal off.
Yeah, not going to be having too much fun in the lane just yet. Again, you're up against a Bluestone Kleena, so the clear is going to be pretty solid. And now, Slash is able to invade some of the backs, but actually is going to not do that because it looks like Magic Feet is making the rotation over. You don't want to try and fight the Bastat early, especially when you don't know where the rotations are coming out here. But it does look like Jangaru might be looking towards that left lane, knowing the purple buff is about to spawn. There could be a gank potential here. Wheelix does have some crazy early damage.
Yeah, Jangaru really sitting up here between these two buffs, wondering which one they may go for first. Instead, the answer will be neither. Not wanting to step up here up against this Atlas that Oceans is piloting here. A little bit of a different look out of Oceans. Typically, we have been seeing a lot more of the mage supports and then like Khepri Ganesh out of Oceans. But seeing this Atlas here and at least seeing the pressure that's been able to warrant Zen in this dual lane means that the Xibalba Storm have a lane that they don't have to worry about for at least the early portion of the game.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he played Xing 10 as well, so a lot of different style of Guardians, but maybe just widening that God pool. And Atlas, never a bad one to have in the arsenal, I would say. I don't think there's anything that Atlas does that's really bad, and he doesn't have any terrible matchups besides the E-set that we've heard time and time again sort of interrupts all of his damage. And then we've even seen Nox as a counter pick. Anyone that can sort of interrupt him, so I'm guessing Ganesha does fall into that favor. The silence is going to be pretty annoying as Uzi gets a little bit poked out here in the lane. Slash ticks over to 5 first.
But it's going to be a pickup jumped over by Shinigami this time. That gravity pull, just a little too telegraphed, at least for Shinigami to be yanked in by there. And even if he did manage to get picked up, Priv was standing by, so could have had that Ohm ready to go to prevent the actual throw after. Jangaru, though, rotating over, could be First Blood going over for the Sages. They'll turn their sights towards Oceans, gets quick beads. The pickup is going to grab Primitive. They'll throw them over, but Jangaru won't be able to get the final blow here. Athenian Sages, they get something out of this rotation, getting the beads off of Oceans.
Yeah, Oceans did have the beads available, so wasn't really in too much danger, but Magic Feet is making the rotation. Bastet is here. On the flip side, though, still beads. 10 beads in this game. Every single person has them, so recognizing how much CC is allowed in this comp is going to be a little bit annoying. So now, I'm looking at either the jungles, obviously, because both of them have a good displacement tool, and I'm looking at Joshi.
Oceans picked up, thrown back and grabbed by Jangaru, and then a flip over with the Feather Step. We'll strike First Blood now for the Athenian Sages, and not just with that First Blood bounty, a little bit of extra farm has netted them an early 700, nearly 1K gold lead. Magic Feet a little bit late on this rotation to help out. Dual lane goes down. It's the Sages who are up first.
Yeah, I would say Magic Feet was late, but it was more so Jangaru just hung around for so long. He did come over and say, hey, are you guys getting ganked? And they were like, no, we're good. And then Jangaru was like, I'm actually not leaving. I'm going to continue this gank, the gank-re-gank combo. I already got Ocean's beads down, and now we have the knock-up for the Gravity Surge. So, unfortunate for Oceans. Going to be going in at base as First Blood goes the way of Jangaru. Going to have a nice power spike there with the Crusher already built. So now, if I'm Jangaru, I'm looking around the map and I'm saying, who can I gank next with this lead? Because the Athenian Sages have been able to push their leads pretty solidly this whole set. It's more so the late game team fights that they struggled with. So finding a lead has never been their issue.
Maybe they can try and push that lead early on here. Slash will continue to hold pressure in the solo lane. All three Totemakus have gone their way. That was the name of the game in game number 1 for this team as well, was to make sure that Slash was able to get a bit of a solid lead in that solo lane, though definitely not nearly the same degree that he had at this time. No kills over on that right side of the map. Uzi been able to play very safe on this Camazotz, though by very safe I also mean sitting under tier 1 tower and not really getting to leave tier 1 tower for pretty much the entire start of this game.
Yeah, just because of the build as well, I think. Obviously, Slash already has that full Soul Eater and is trying to stack it up currently, but Uzi, having that tier 2 could go Glad Shield, could go Berserker Shield, even a Shifter Shield at this point. There's a few different options that Uzi could be trying to go here. If it was Berserker Shield, I would expect that Death Toll start, but because we have the Axe start, I'm thinking more towards that Shifters or Glad Shield, just trying to be a little bit more tanky, not going for the auto attack based Camazotz build here. But Ocean's a little bit far up here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see an engage, but that dash does get you a pretty safe amount of distance away.
Yeah, you go pretty far with that kinetic charge. Also a decent bit of movement speed just added to it there. But a fight over the mid camps here on this left-hand side. Oceans will pick up the mid camps, and it's a Sanctified Field drop on top of Primitive. Beads from the Ganesh very quickly to get out of there, but that gives enough time for the Xibalba Storm to pick up the left side mid camps and the offerings, so that way they can at least hold a little bit of a lead as far as that's concerned. But it's still about 1,200 up for the Athenian Sages. They haven't lost their lead that they picked up off that First Blood.
Yeah, but they did get the Obelisk, and the Shocky Boy is coming. The Indra Scepter is going to have a lot of damage to help out the squad here. As Uzi actually has an XP lead right now? How did this even happen? I mean, Slash has had so much pressure in this lane, has had so many Totem of Coups, as you said, but it looks like just the farm game, the Harpies and everything, Uzi has been able to confirm pretty solidly here.
Yeah, not just that. I mean, we saw the fight over the Naga camp just earlier on. Uzi at least got the XP for getting the kill there. Didn't get the offering, so Uzi, even despite being stuck under that tier 1 tower, has been able to make good use of this farm on this right-hand side. Now just barely ahead of Slash as far as the farm is concerned. Everywhere else pretty much tied aside from the jungle. A slight lead for Jangaru with the help of that First Blood bounty, but Magic Feet with a Jotun's Wrath instead of the Crusher, so going for a little bit more cooldown in the build as opposed to just the raw power that Jangaru's gone for.
Take a look at Joshi's build. Did not opt to go into one of those rings. We usually see the Ring of Hecate or Hecate.
Right.
This time around buys a full Book of Thoth.
Wow.
I mean, it's going to help the crits. I think that's the idea. They're trying to crit as hard as possible on this Oleron. There's going to be a lot of damage on that one. If you're going to be going sort of hybrid, like Soul, for example, I mean, even with Soul, you don't see the Book of Thoth, but sort of hybrid where you get a little bit of, like, hard power, and then you just get auto attack items. I'm interested to see how this Oleron build scales late game. I mean, you're going to crit very hard again, but your auto attack speed is what you're really going to want to build into, and it looks like the ring is still an option for Joshi.
Yeah, hasn't given up the ring, just decided, you know what, I've got enough gold for Book of Thought. I might as well just go ahead and buy it. It's kind of the old Lasses mentality when it came to buying Ratatouille. It said, well, I was going to back and get a Chronos pendant, but I just happen to have enough gold for a full Ratatouille instead. So that's what I went with here. Uzi, though, not going to go with what you may have thought as far as the shields were concerned. Will end up picking Berserkers up for that first item over into the soul lane, then immediately going in towards that cudgel. A couple of different options there. And I won't try and make any guesses because, well, he's already going with maybe the unpredictable. Magic Feet going to avoid the pickup there by using the beads. That's going to be a pick back by Oceans, and ultimate fired onto Primitive, pulled right back in, and nowhere to go for the elephant. Joshi is going to be the one to strike the first kill for his team, thanks to the help of that pull back in with the ultimate out of Magic Feet.
Yeah, they do get the beads on the Bastet and the Atlas, so Magic Feet and Oceans are going to have to chill for a little bit there, but the gold lead still in favor of the Athenian Sages, just by a bit, about 900. The XP lead is in favor of the Xibalba Storm, so pretty even matchup, I would say, at the moment. On the flip side, Athenian Sages have 5 Bs to their name. They're not too worried here.
Let's see. Going for a sustained battle up against Slash, and going about net even as far as that's concerned, but Slash is getting a lot of damage right back in. That Soul Eater coming up big for the heals, but Uzi, with just the natural healing in the kit, is going to have a lot more sustain here. Magic Feet is standing around, but no ultimate to their name, and spotted by Jangaru. Means the Magic Feet is going to have to back away from the fight. Keep your eyes on Oceans, though. No ultimate up for the Atlas, but still waiting around in the area.
Yeah, no beads either again, so going to have to play a little bit careful here as Uzi continues the slap fight in this soul lane. Priv might go for a gank here, but Bat Out of Hell is available, so I don't think Uzi's in too much danger. Jangaru, though, might be in some trouble.
Jangaru does manage to jump on out of there. It was a blue buff invade that does go successfully over to the Athenian Sages, so they'll get a little bit of pressure here and deny Uzi another blue buff. It took him a little while to steal one from him this game, but fortunate for them, they do manage to grab one here, though. So Athenian Sages still hold up that gold lead, but as we said, the XP still slightly favoring the Xibalba Storm here, 1,200 to their name to be exact. Most of that coming out of Joshi and a little bit of Uzi, mostly Joshi, though, with that 1 level lead up now that Slash has actually been able to get that extra bit of farm. Uzi finally falling back behind.
Full Telkine's Ring for Joshi now. I mean, that's a crazy amount of damage. No sort of penetration, but any sort of squishy you're hitting right now, and even Priv, who seems to be the target for most of these engagements, trying to get just locked down, get the beats down, and then just pump autos in with the Sanctified Field. So Joshi getting a lot of extra gold from this Gilded and is able to spend it pretty frugally. I mean, you have, as I said, Telkines and into that Book of Thoughts, so just going for crazy amounts of expensive items, but it's paying off. Level 12 has a 2-level lead over Briz at the moment. Maybe Briz ticked over to 11. Yeah, he did tick over to 11, but still, Joshi has the farm and is spending it.
And could be going for another very expensive third item, a lost artifact out of Joshi. And if I were to place my bets on this, I would say Ratatouille straight to Nimble Rod here. That's going to give a lot of power and a lot of attack speed once those stacks start coming online, especially when you're looking at full Book of Thoth nearly fully stacked up here. Telkine's Ring that gives a ton of power for these mages. Joshi's going for a very expensive build early on. I think you're right to point that out, but he's going to get a lot of damage online early.
Yeah, my brain wants me to say Charon's Coin just because of the way the penetration works and how you want to get it stacked up early, but because of how he's just been buying as many expensive items as possible, I think you're right to assume a Nimble Rod could come out as well, just to buff that attack speed, as well as that crit chance, as we've been mentioning already. Oleron really does benefit from having some power here, but we don't see too many people abusing that fact. As Jangaru is looking over here at In My Zen, but I'm pretty sure that ward spotted this out, and he doesn't want to step up too far here, knowing that he doesn't want to give up those beats.
Zen will sit by in the lane, walks up just a little bit closer, but right as Jangaru backs, so Zen should be fine as far as this dual lane is concerned. Shinigami just now procs over to 13 to tie up In My Zen's level, who should be getting pretty close to that level 14 barrier now on this Medusa. Both of them sitting even in the builds, only a tier 1 light blade up for Shinigami as far as the boxing is concerned, so only a little bit of extra power, but all those extra crusher procs from Zen, I mean, that's the one thing we talk about with Medusa all the time is when you take that boxing match with her, you better be ready to take the full brunt of that damage through, because Zen is going to have a lot of it. But Jangaru went back to base and then came right back to the lane. Shinigami will drop the ultimate response. Jangaru goes in, will use the Aegis to get away from the Feather Step, tries to turn the fight around, but it's Shinigami who comes out with the benefactor of it. It'll be a kill for them, and an ultimate out of Primitive to try and slow down the Xibalba Storm. But there's now 3 here, but it's a 3 versus 4 that the Sages have advantage on.
Yeah, I thought that was a really clutch play by Zen to immune the brunt of that damage, but still not enough to survive that dive. I mean, Awilix and Hou-Yi just have a crazy amount of damage here, and it looks like Shimigami is actually going to go for the shell. Doesn't put any stock in that Aegis at the moment, realizes how many auto attackers they have, and is just trying to help out the squad. Could upgrade it into that fortified shell as we've seen, so just trying to be a team player in that regard. But another kill to the Athenian Sages, trying to climb back. They have the lead once again, but still pretty even, just, you know, both back and forth.
Jengaru was on a warpath for that left side lane there. I mean, he went all the way up, stood near the obelisk, not quite in vision range of the obelisk, and then decided, you know what? It's not worth trying to go for a kill on the Zen right now. I'll just go back to base. And then he goes back to base, and he goes all the way back to the left side, says, you know what? Maybe we'll try this one again. Finally, ends up paying off for them. The Pyromancer started up by the Xibalba Storm and taken by the Xibalba Storm to answer back and close up that gold lead yet again. Still only sitting around that 500-600 gold mark. But with that Pyromancer going down, it's the call for the Sages to start the Gold Fury. And they'll get that one easily with all the objectives shred to their name with that Kinesh and that cleanup.
Yeah,
they will take that down easily.
Slash makes the rotation over. They're going to do that very quickly. So now the answer back has been there. The Sages holding on to that lead as we mentioned. But if you were paying attention there, I think Joshy's critting for about 240 at the moment. So still a hefty amount of damage, but not as much as a physical crit. So, you know, I'm still not seeing if this build's going to really pay off here. I'm very curious because, again, we don't usually see this style of Oleron. It's usually that Ring of Hecate, maybe a Spear of the Magus, but mostly just going into attack speed. I really want to see if this build ends up paying off as Jengaru looks over at Zen again. Remember, last time got both relics. So in my Zen, it has about 45 seconds on the Aegis and the beads, respectively.
We are going to have to hold our breath just a little while longer on Joshy's third item. Only had enough gold to buy the tier 2 towards those items. But another threat over here. This time it's Shinigami in the 3v1, so Shinigami not going to take this fight up against Zen or Ocean. Jengaru, though, really has been sticking around this left side of the map more often than not. Uzi and Slash are doing their own thing in the solo lane, so with the fact that Uzi didn't go down, what, 4 times in like 12 minutes this game,
Yeah.
No reason to keep trying to put that pressure on the Camazotz.
Yeah, but looking on the opposite side, Shinigami actually just going to go into the chin size here, as In My Zen's going more for that Wind Demon Shuriken. So crit versus shred on the side of the Sages versus the Storm. And Uzi back to clearing the waves, as we mentioned. Slash is going to get a good amount of poke here, but no sort of anti-heal in the build, so I think the sustained battle for both of them is just going to keep them pretty well. And now we're looking back at these objectives. Obviously, the Fury is down, the Pyromancer is down, that Fire Giant, no one really wanting to go for here, as Jengaru looks for a possible gank on the right side of the map.
I mean, we spent like half of our last game staring at Fire Giant dancing,
Yep.
so could be a similar situation here in game number 2, but especially because of how close it is now compared to what it was earlier on. I mean, 20 minutes into game number 1, the Sages had a 5, nearly 6,000 gold lead. Now we're 15, 16 minutes in, and it's a 1,000 gold lead. Much, much smaller this time around in experience, even over towards Xibalba Storm. So the Sages haven't been able to pick up the lead that they had in the previous game, so I imagine it'll be quite some time before we see a Fire Giant pulled. And
And it is that Rod of Tahuti. So Josh keep really putting his stock into these crits, but the attack speed is going to be there as well. We know the Nimble Rod, what it's able to accomplish with that Telkind's Ring. We are going to see some crazy amounts of shred, but anyone with a strong amount of defense, like Slash and Priv, not going to be taking as much. Still no sort of penetration, just a bit on the Rod of Tahuti right now for Josh.
Riv gets the silence on Ocean, so the pull isn't good, at least the first time through, but Oceans will go for a second one, picks up the support, but it's the fight in the mid lane that's the big deal here. Primitive and Slash going low, Slash goes down, it's a pull in on top of Uzi by Jengaru, but Jengaru's not gonna have the follow-up after Vampire Bats on top of Shinigami. He cannot box through the damage that his Camazotz has. Uzi has to use that Bat out of Hell to go back through, but Magic V picks up the double kill all the while in the fight.
The Xibalba Storm, 5 strong, pushing down this tier 2 versus 3, but it looks like they're not even going to stand to defend this. Shinigami very weak here, even with the Aussie proc, not wanting to step up too far as Oceans gets poked down real low.
But Ocean's playing very risky to make sure that his team can grab that tier 2 tower. Jengaru's come back in, it's a fight once again against Uzi on that right-hand side, but Uzi should be fine. And the rest of the Xibalba Storm will retreat after taking those 2 towers. That's a 2,000 gold swing that the Storm are able to take with just those 2 towers alone and a couple of kills, picking up Priv and Slash.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier about how if Awilix wasn't able to get crazy ahead early, it would be a little bit more difficult for this late game. Jengaru is 1-0, but now down 2 levels to the Bastet, who just is going to spend this gold a little bit better late game. I mean, Jengaru has the threat of the pull, but besides that, Awilix sort of falls off as this next portion of the game is going to begin. Pyromancer almost up, as well as the Primal Fury. The Xibalba Storm finally have a lead of their own. They had the XP lead, but now they have the gold lead as well.
Xibalba Storm, the question is, where will they put their attention to next? Fire Giant's up, but unlikely to see that for now. Pyromancer and the Gold Fury, or the Primal Fury in this instance, should be the next target up for these two teams. It's only 3-2. Kills much lower than we had in game 1, though we did hit a bit of a plateau in that previous game. It was like a 7-0 rush down by the Athenian Sages, and then pretty much nothing until Fire Giant and Gold Fury became an option. Then we saw a few more kills, and then again, nothing, and then one more time around these objectives. So it really does feel like these two teams have focused most of their kill pressure to be around these objective team fights.
Look at Slash and Uzi's damage. Pretty similar for these solo lane assassins, like almost exactly the same. So they've been poking each other pretty much the same, and then rotating these team fights and poking the carries pretty much the same. Just an interesting little factoid there as we look at Feet taking a lot of damage, gonna get pulled back, and that might be all.
Could just be it, at least for Magic Feet. Priv leads some damage. Uzi jumps on in to find Slash and puts them a little bit low HP, but that response back from Briz and from Slash will make sure that Uzi has to think twice about jumping in. But all the while, that's going to set up for the Xibalba Storm to take this Primal Fury. No answer back from the Sage. Just a fast rotation out of the Chaos side team. Nets them yet another objective. Uzi will eat some damage there, at least from Slash, but now the aggression has been thrown towards Shinigami. Sanctified Field comes down. That gets the beads out of the Ho Yi. The pickup is good. He'll throw him right back inside the Sanctified Field. Said, you're not leaving. Not just yet. Instead, it'll also be a Tier 1 tower going down.
And it looks like the Tier 2 tower might be looked at as well. Uzi makes the rotation in as Slash is in the wall. Ocean's leading the charge, but no minions yet. Hiding under this Tier 2 tower. Xibalba Storm want this, and they're going to go for it.
Oceans will charge forward just to get some extra movement speed to the team, but another Tier 1, Tier 2 combo out of the Xibalba Storm, plus the objective this time nets them not just the 2,000 from the tower, but the extra from the objective. A 5K swing, the largest lead that the Xibalba Storm have seen this entire set so far. Even, I would say, seeing a lead is more than the Xibalba got in game number 1. So right now, 20 minutes in, Xibalba Storm only with 4 kills to their name, but this 5,000 gold swing, this massive lead that they've been able to amass for themselves here, it's reflected across the board. I mean, nearly every role has at least 1 to 2 levels in the lead.
Yeah, 10,000 XP lead as well. So pretty insane farming for the Xibalba Storm. I'm mainly looking at Josh, who's been level 20 for quite some time. Obviously in my Zen, ticked over to 20. Pretty close for the jungle and the soul laner, but it looks like the Sages are not afraid to fight. They still have some pick options here. Obviously, they got a few beads down, so if Jangaro is able to hit a clutch Gravity Surge, they do have some chances for a pick before these objectives are pulled, but in my Zen, already starting up that Pyromancer.
Pyromancer started, but it'll be dropped almost right after Xibalba Storm grouping up on this right side of the map. Magic Feet a little bit later to the party on here. I'm talking about player damage, though. Magic Feet sitting at the very bottom of the chart, even below this Ganesh. Finally, a few damage options. It just takes one good ability out of Magic Feet to bump that number up just a bit, but having to use that ultimate defensively, both the bubble and ultimate, have now been stripped away from Magic Feet. Not going to find any value from that one in this next team fight.
Yeah, no beads for 20 seconds as well, so I think Magic Feet's going to have to play very safe with this pounce, not wanting to jump anywhere around this Awilix, but it looks like Priv might be trying to wrap around here as he takes a lot of damage as well.
Pick up by Oceans, but it's only going to grab Slash a little while, a little distance here. Uzi, though, has to use those beads in a bat out of Hell, Sanctified Field, and some damage from Midmind's 10 will take down Primitive. Oceans charges forward, finds Briz. Joshi with the long-range shot will grab one, and Uzi using those blood pools to sustain back up will go through, but Shinigami with the ricochet off the wall. A nice little trick shot will finally net the Sages a kill.
Yeah, that could have killed Uzi too. That would have been sick. Either way, a nice return kill for the Athenian Sages. That could have been Fire Giant, but now you're losing your main tank. I think Uzi still has the tank stats to be able to tank this one up, and it looks like the Sages are not going to want to try to defend this one, so they are just going to give it up on the left side of the map, try to get some farm. But great play by the Xibalba Storm, able to just find those picks that they needed, have the Fire Giant, and they are in the driver's seat once again. I have to decide, will Joshi just go for the upgrade? Will he just go for the Diamond Arrow? Or will he go for this Nimble Rod? Tahuti has a lot of gold in hand to decide. He could get both if that's what he's looking at here. But either way, crazy power spikes coming online for the Xibalba Storm. They have a very solid gold lead now, up to 10K, as we mentioned. So it's going to be very difficult to try to fight this one back. There's no tier 2s on the map even. So this will be a Phoenix Siege at 22 minutes, J-Mac.
Yeah, I mean, that last little team fight took away the last 2 structures on the Sage's side of the map. All but one tower still standing for the Xibalba Storms. That's a large influx of gold that the Sages could get back on their return fire, but it is going to be a Diamond Arrow pickup. Not going to elect to upgrade to that Nimble Ratatouille just yet for Josh. So a lot of extra basic attack damage. You can see 80 bonus basic attack damage there as far as this Ola run is concerned. So those autos are going to be swinging hard. Then you throw in the Telkines, which is going to get that extra bit of scaling there. I mean, Joshy's going to destroy objectives, going to destroy squishies. These tanks, maybe not quite as much.
He has the Obsidian Shard, so I think he will have a fair bit of damage there if he needs to. I mean, at this point, you're a late-game Oleron. In your ult, you're going to destroy anything. But either way, it does take a little bit of time to get that damage off. It's not that crazy burst damage we usually see out of a mid-lane mage. Again, this is an auto-attack-centric mage who's going to be trying to shred down with auto-attacks specifically. So now we're looking at could be a 3-2 push as Uzi joins Magic Feet in the mid lane. But you have 2 ADCs on the left, so how do you defend this?
For now, it's just a defense out of the Athenian Sages they're going to need it. Uzi will walk in towards the Phoenix just to clear out the wave and really just divert the attention of the Athenian Sages. Jangaru is the only one standing around here. But that's going to be a bubble turned away. Jangaru didn't turn around fast enough. Or actually, I think I ended up thinking about the root there.
Yeah, that was the
from
root
Magic
from
Feet. I was thinking, you know, the Jaguar here, but it's going to be a re-engage of the Sages on the left side of the map. That's not going to get any relics out. That's just going to be Dharmic Pillars burned by Priv.
Yeah, Briz doesn't have any relics for a few more seconds here. Now, everyone has pretty much everything up at this point, so it's an even fight through and through, except for, 10k gold lead and Fire Giant for Xibalba Storm. So, should be in their favor here, as they do have only 3, but Uzi's getting aggressed upon the mid lane as well.
Yeah, Uzi's taking a lot of damage, but the Phoenix has now been looked at by the Xibalba Storm. A frenzy pop through. Oceans isn't able to get that pull thanks to the silence coming out of Primitive. The sun's rained down. Briz fires a few shots at ultimate of his own, but not going to get a whole lot here. Some big heals now coming back up. The sneaky heals out of Joshi on this Ola run will get the team back up to nearly full health, plus that Fire Giant. It's a re-engage now by Uzi, who's back up to full HP. Bat out of Hell will disrupt the backline. Shinigami doesn't get to play in this team fight. It's a pull back in onto Uzi, and the Sanctified Field drop down. That's the go button for the Xibalba Storm to go through, but Briz doesn't go down here into the show with that. The Xibalba Storm will have to back away, but at the very least, they get a left side Phoenix.
Yeah, they did have to drop a lot for that Phoenix, and at one point, I'm pretty sure I saw Joshi crit Briz for about 600. So the build is paying off in dividends, but it looks like they want to fight this, and the Athenian Sages are going to go in.
Dharmic Pillars are good. Match Feed eating a lot of damage. Does manage to find the jump just in time to get away. Uzi leaps back into danger, but Joshi with the orbs will take down Uzi, making it a 1-for-1 trade. But that's primitive for their solo laner now. Uzi down for 50 seconds. Slash still on the hunt, but the Xibalba Storm should be out of this fight.
Shinigami has these nice bounces, but yeah, Joshi does not have the ultimate available. A chase would mean, probably a kill here. I don't imagine the Xibalba Storm want to try to fight this. They're taking the far away approach where they don't want to, they don't want to try to meet Athenian Sages in the jungle, but it looks like Jangaru's going to walk up here, and my Zen has a lot of damage if they do round the corner. But still, Slash is very deep as well.
Slash will have just enough health to get inside the wall this time. The Suns from Shinigami have been dropped, but not going to find a whole lot of value here. Briz has used the ultimate in response to the Petrify. So that way the slow doesn't completely destroy him, but because he doesn't have the beads or the ult, he gets pulled right back in by Magic Feet. Finally, finding some big value on that ultimate, and the Gold Fury to boot with it. The Xibalba Storm continue to push up that lead. 13,000 gold up for the Chaos team.
Yeah, left Phoenix down. They did get the Gold Fury and a solid pick onto Briz, but the Fire Giant is gone. At this point, you have to wait for the respawn coming in about 25 seconds, and I don't think that, versus 5, the Athenian Sages are going to be able to post up. They have one person in left. Maybe Slash could go for a cheeky steal through the wall. Kalina does have a lot of safety in that Fire Giant wall, as it was just pinged out here. They know it's spawning shortly. The Xibalba Storm are in the driver's seat, as we've mentioned. They have everything they really need here. Joshi has gone undying this game on his, I'm not going to say uncentric build. It's interesting and it's working. The Chronos Pendant will be the last item here, trying to help some of the cooldown as Uzi steps up to 3.
You know what, that ultimate is a very long cooldown, so I'm not gonna hate on the Chronos Pendant, but it really does feel like we're watching just a more traditional style mage come through. Fire Giant was pulled and will go down very quickly to the Xibalba Storm. No answer back here for the Athenian Sages. They had to send their mid laner Briz to hold off the fire minions on the left side, but with no towers still up here, the Xibalba Storm can walk right up this right side and work towards the Phoenix.
Yeah, Uzi did waste the blink there trying to engage on the Shinigami. There is a wave coming down left side as well. Someone will have to defend that, but not just yet. I think if you're Xibalba Storm, you probably wait for those fire minions just to trickle in before you begin this siege. It's just the safer call, but you have double ADC, so Phoenix is not going to survive for much longer.
Slash will go inside the wall, maybe just to drop a trap or two down here. Or at least throw the silence up against Uzi as he walks towards the wall. First trap goes through. Get some damage into the back line. Jarmy Pillars in response, owned by Priv, and it's gonna be good. Priz is able to pick up a kill up against Zen. That's the carry down, but Joshi responds back by taking out the solo laner. It's gonna be a shell in the back line now by the Athenian Sages. Oceans is low, and Oceans is gone, but so is the right side Phoenix. Xibalba Storm able to find an objective out of nothing.
They might still be able to go for this mid Phoenix, despite being 3v4. The left side Phoenix is going to need to be defended. You have Fire Giant and you have Joshi, but it looks like they're not going to go for this call here. They're just going to back off, steal away some camps, and play it the safe route. I mean, you do have, yeah, I guess it is the smart call, but they are going to sit around, maybe look for some picks here. They did get a good amount of relics. Obviously, Briz has none at the moment. Blink from Jengaru is gone, but you still have the beads, and then Shinigami did waste the shell. So you could go for that, but it looks like the smart call is just to back off here. You still have Fire Giant on 3. You might be able to just regroup and try another siege in a few seconds.
We do see a Breastplate of Vigilance picked up on the side of Oceans here. Now, in my time playing Atlas, I know how long that ultimate takes before it finally goes on cooldown. So to me, it feels like that item, not the best on here, but Oceans does end up picking that one up in his 5th slot, working towards another physical defense item to really try and soak up some of these objectives here. With Xibalba Storm, they've got the lead, and they've got all the time in the world. Though that left side Phoenix does respawn, that means that there's no more fire waves over there. So this next Fire Giant, should it go that long, isn't going to go as easily over to Xibalba Storm. Charlie, where do the Athenian Sages find their way back into these team fights now?
Well, they're going to have to defend this left Phoenix first and foremost. That's the idea, because right now, they still have a minute 30 on this Fire Giant buff. This siege is not over, J-Mac. They have a chance to go for this Phoenix once again. It's already weak, and once again, this double ADC comp will be able to shred it very quickly. But I would say, I mean, at this point, you're up against quite the deficit here. I think Uzi has to watch and not get pulled, and the Athenian Sages have to win this siege. Even losing one Phoenix and winning this fight would be huge for them. I don't know if they'd really end off it. There is a lot of towers still up on the map for them.
Uzi will stand around the wall, could make a nice little jump in here. Meanwhile, Magic Feet over in the mid lane, and Uzi up against 3 now, as the left side Phoenix is the call for the Xibalba Storm. Big damage out of Slash. Will hit Josh. He has to use the Sanctified Field. Shinigami now stuck in the air, and Magic Feet finds Slash in the midst of the team fight. Priv using that Ohm to hold Uzi back, but the left side Phoenix goes down. Briz separates the fight, but Shinigami, with no relics to their name, is life-stealing for as much as they can, but it's not going to be enough. It's Uzi picking up the kill on the Hunter. 2 down now for the Sages, and all 3 Phoenixes off the map. The Xibalba Storm can walk right into this throne room if they want to take the game. Uzi will be the first one in. Some damage in the backline from Joshi, but there's too much here out of the Xibalba Storm. They'll take the 2-0 over the Sages.
Yeah, Magic Feet, despite not doing too much damage, was able to find some good amount of CC, that Huntress of Bast as well, getting those beads down for that siege. I mean, just a crazy amount of damage. I will say, I'm a believer of the Joshi build. I had some question marks about it, but the amount of damage was there in the Sanctified Fields. It was pretty clutch, I would say. It was an interesting build, but it worked out.
Yeah, definitely going for a much more traditional mage style of build here than what we're used to seeing out of things like an Ola run or even a Soul, you know, these more magical ADC type things. But works out here in game number 2 for the Xibalba Storm. They find the 2-0. We'll take a break, and we'll come back right after to close out the SCC.
To me now, a stranger to me now. You are just a stranger to me now, a stranger to me now. Am I just a stranger to you now? A stranger to you now? Have you forgotten? I know where you've been. I've tasted all your sin. It doesn't make a difference to me. You came into my life. We've crossed the other side. Now we can't turn back. You call it wasted time. My heart's still on the line. I am still holding on. There will never be a love for you like me. So please don't leave me.
The Xibalba Storm get it done in 2 games. It took them a little while in game number 1, a nearly 40-minute battle where they were pretty much behind the entire time to get a win. But in game number 2, off on the right foot right at the very beginning, Xibalba Storm take the start of the game, and then they never really let off the gas here, able to close this one out with a little bit of unorthodoxness into their kit here. Specifically, Charlie, talking about Joshi, this kind of more awkward build coming out of him. We questioned it pretty much the entire way through, like, what is he doing? Why is he going with this? But it ends up panning out, and the Xibalba Storm take it 2-0.
Yeah, putting just a little bit more power in the build, trying to get some crits from Oleron. I was questioning if he was able to, make the use of this build, obviously, because you usually just want crazy amounts of shred, but it worked out. He was able to crit the squishies for a fair amount of damage, and still, with that ultimate, was able to get the DPS off his magic feet. Not doing too much general damage, but the CC, the lockdown, was always there. The Hundreds of Baths started landing more consistently, and, just a great amount of setup for the squad there.
Yeah, and Zen was able to get some good tower pressure throughout the game and just a few nice little picks here over in that duo lane. We did see Shinigami go for the shell this game, and probably a couple instances where maybe he was wishing that they did have an Aegis there. But as these late game team fights came through, these sanctified fields making massive zoning areas here, at least for the Xibalba Storm to be able to fight back in against the Athenian Sages. These Dharmic Pillars weren't able to get as much value as the team fights went on. There were a couple of moments where those Dharmic Pillars did find some big picks. But as you can see, as these team fights start getting a lot more scrappy, that's when we see Magic Feet able to make the impact with those ultimates like we saw in that last little highlight.
Yeah, Uzi was also just, very tanky, very different from last game, whereas he was, behind for a good portion of it. This time was net even for quite some time, and then was able to just go to the backline and do crazy amounts of damage. Top in the game, of course, because you were pretty much seeing him 1v3 versus the carries, and then go into that bat out of hell and just swoop down, and you can't really peel that. You just have to sit back and say, hey, you got to deal with that, man. Sorry. Juke some swoops if you can. Good luck.
Yeah, it makes a world of difference when you're not fighting 2-3 levels down the entire time, when you're not being camped for the first 15 minutes of your game. Uzi finally getting to play a game of Smite out here in the second one out. That does give Xibalba win the 2-0 win here in their second week of the SCC. This will have a few more sets that they'll have to play throughout our time here in the SCC. It's not over for either of these teams just yet, but trying to get any win that you can because you're only playing in these round robins throughout this first phase, only one time out here. So SCC, a good start here from the Xibalba Storm, and I believe that now puts them up with their second win, if I'm not mistaken. Let's take a look at the schedule to see what has happened for the NASCC now that we have concluded our last set here. I mean, the SCC, over the course of their 2 days with North America, we do see the Eldritch Hounds, the Yomi Tanuki, and the Xibalba Storm all getting their wins here in week 2.
Yeah, looking very solid. The Eldritch Hounds looking pretty much unstoppable. I would say they have just been a really solid roster. Getting 2-0s right now, especially in this circuit, I would say, is very difficult because we saw the amount of pressure that the Xibalba Storm had to go against in game one. So just being able to close out 2-0 sets really shows how dominant your performance has to be here.
Yeah, Xibalba Storm and the Hounds both tied up for first place right now in North America. Athenian Sages and the Anansi Weavers down at the bottom end of there. But again, it's only week number 2 of the SEC. There's still plenty more for these teams to go. So it's not the end of the world taking a loss here, but every single win does end up stacking up and does end up counting as we move towards the latter halves of the SEC. Still a lot to expect from these teams, though, Trelly.
Yeah, no doubt. They're gonna have some growing pains. It's just like it's a tense league. As we've mentioned a few times now, the competition is fierce. Any one of these sets I've been able to cast and watch, I'm thinking this could go either way, especially that game 1 as we just saw. So a 2-0 for the Xibalba Storm, but it was not a dominant performance. Game 2 looked much better, but I think any one of these squads are able to take a game off just about anyone.
Yeah, it's a tight race in both of these regions, whether it be North America or Europe over here. So the SEC could go either way. But that's all that we have for the SEC for this week. We still have more action going on today, though. SPL going to be kicking off at 1 p.m. with our match of the week with the Atlantis Leviathans and the Tartarus Titans. You don't want to miss out on that. So we're going to take a little bit of a break. We'll see you back here at 1 p.m. for the SPL.